Traders, how are you? With Marcello. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. Everything got thrown upside down with the quote-unquote unexpected inflation report that brought absolutely everything down except gold and silver. We have food rationing beginning in supermarkets in Germany. We have another hack in the Bored Apes when it comes to the NFTs, and a lot more. Let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, most of the overarching story this week was essentially inflation, the quote-unquote unexpected, wink, wink, for those of you guys listening on the podcast, the unexpected, much higher than expected inflation rate. It came in at 8.6, which is the highest since 1981. The cost of living went up by 1% from April to May, literally from one month to the other. Doesn't sound like a lot, right? But if you put that in perspective, 1% a month, 12 months, you're looking at 12% a year. So imagine you're paying, let's say the average rent in the United States is about $1,600 for a one bedroom. Your rent goes up by $160 every year. On top of the electricity, obviously the gas prices have reached a record high. So things are not bueno. The fear is that the central banks are going to increase interest rates or have a tendency to increase them more to be able to control inflation. And if they do that, the epic bubble that we've been in since 1999 is going to come crashing down. And I can tell you right now, it's not going to be a soft landing. So that's really why everything went down, because it's that fear that, well, we're kind of walking into a recession. Overall, the groceries are up 11.9%. Chicken is up over 17%. Restaurants are up over 9%. And fuel, as you and I both know, is up 107%. Largest year-over-year price hikes ever in the United States. Right now, there's an extra $460 a month that we have to pay as Americans. Compared to any other month in recent years, and over a year, basically it's $5,520. So if you guys want to convert that, if you're in Australia or the UK, obviously most of the inflation around the world right now is because of the US. We're literally exporting that throughout the entire world. The Dow has had its worst January, beginning of the year from January to now in the history of the Dow. Most of the exchanges in the US and Canada were all negative. They're all down double digits for the year, so officially in bear market territory. And the US consumer sentiment, which is the single most important number, I would say, with the economy, sank to its worst level on record. So if you don't know, the overall US economy, biggest economy in the world still, the almost 70%, 70, is consumer spending. So if consumer spending is down at a record, that means that most people are not going to go out and spend money on things. If people don't go out and spend money on things, that's 70% of the economy is going to take a huge hit. And that's on top of the roughly 18% of the economy, which is the housing market. And the mortgage applications have gone down by 6.5%. So a lot of red flags now that are starting to go up. You should learn how to trade. I always tell people, don't learn, how to make $1 million tomorrow, because that's unreasonable to think you're just going to start trading. But you need to start a side hustle. It wouldn't be that hard to start making $200, maybe $400 a month to counteract the rise in prices, because it's going to continue to accelerate instead of decelerating. Overseas market news: Euro markets are mostly lower. Italy taking the crown there, the biggest negative of them all. Latin America far lower as well. Only exception would be Asia and the Australian markets. Middle East, I was going to say Middle Africa. Middle East and Africa mostly negative. We have some markets there in Asia that actually ended up positive. Bitcoin and crypto news: Bored Apes, the fantastical super popular NFTs that you can't sell for anything now has just been hacked again. They stole 200 Ethereum. Ethereum now is at about 1,500. So you add 2 zeros, we're looking at something like $3 to $4 million if I did my numbers right. If I didn't, leave it there in the comments for me. Ethereum tumbles below the holder's average cost basis. So of all the 12.7 million Ethereum that people have out there, the price is now lower than what everybody on average bought it at. There's a big fear right now that we could have a situation where Ethereum could crash just like we saw Luna. Three of the exchanges in the world, they account for over 50, the majority of all the Ethereum holdings. There's one in particular called Lido Finance, which has 32% of the holdings. And there's some fear out there from analysts saying that because it's so concentrated on this exchange, that we could have a situation where there could be a concentrated collapse of Ethereum. Obviously, the developers at Lido are saying, no, that can't happen. But that's what everybody said about Luna and Terra as well. Other than that, Bitcoin lower this week. It went down to 1.20%. I just checked it right now before I was recording this video. It actually went down even further so far. So it's down over 1%, probably closer to 2% now since it hit 28,000. For the year, it's down almost 37%. Obviously, it sounds like a big number, but everybody knows in the crypto space, there's huge volatility that really isn't that much of a big move for Bitcoin. It's what I always told you guys. I have no doubts in my mind that Bitcoin will eventually get back to record highs again. It's super volatile. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. Just be careful due to the fact that there's a situation where there's no regulation. It's just like the wild, wild west. And if you don't know what you're doing, obviously you can get involved in things like Luna and literally lose all of your money. I had a lot of friends in the space that made a lot of money. Some of you guys may have that feeling of regret, right? Oh, why didn't I invest in Bitcoin? Why didn't I do this or that? And a lot of the people I know literally lost all of their profits and some with this huge downturn in addition to the collapse in Luna. So just keep that in mind. You might want to look for something a little bit more regulated, a little bit less volatile. But there isn't one best way to invest. There isn't one best way to trade. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to invest in Bitcoin, just don't put everything. Don't mortgage your house because obviously there's a lot of risk in that, okay? Commodities. They were creating a safe passage for grain out of Ukraine to be able to go ahead and try to solve the food crisis, but the talks actually failed. So now supposedly, quote, there's no political solution to the world food crisis. Midwest farmers in the United States are being squeezed with soaring fertilizer prices as well. The average farmer is spending $175,000 more in fertilizer than last year. So remember that's just the fertilizer to grow the food. Then they have to get the food, they have to ship the food, they have to process the food, and then eventually ship the food to where we are. Prices are not going to go down anytime soon, but unexpectedly, the inflation is most likely going to continue going higher. And I'm in the hotel. They're literally vacuuming in the hallway. So if you guys can hear that, I apologize. And don't forget to leave your like. One of the only things that hasn't gone up in price yet. So leave your like here on YouTube. It helps with the algorithm. I appreciate it a lot. And if you guys want to listen to the podcast, just look up Day Trading Academy there on Spotify where you listen to your podcast. And if you guys are listening to the podcast, you want to see on YouTube, I saw some comments there for you guys wanting to find the video. Just look up Marcello Trader or Marcello Arrambide Trader. It should come up automatically for you guys. Food rationing is beginning in Germany. There's a supermarket chain called Rewe that is allowing only one critical product per customer, such as pasta or flour. So that's probably going to continue to get worse. In the United States, we're starting to see shortages of tampons now, in addition to the baby food formula crisis. Canada is reporting also that there's 3 times the amount of people visiting food banks. Probably going to start happening in the U.S. as well. And in Poland, the government has told its citizens that you should probably look to heat your homes with wood instead of relying on the energy crisis that's going to come in the winter. So much for saving the environment, huh? Europe is now receiving 3/4 of all the liquefied natural gas from the United States. Obviously, they're trying to get rid of their reliance on Russia. They spent decades not developing their own power systems or relying on nuclear. What they did is rely on Russia, and now they have a big problem because obviously everybody wants to stop using Russia's products. U.S. gas has hit a record high at $5 a gallon, 31st record of the last 33 days. One of the things that I've been telling everybody recently is part of the reason why I love living in Colombia. I have a big Ford Explorer ST, 400 horsepower, thing's a rocket. Cost me $40 to fill up my tank. If that same tank was here in the United States, where we're paying about $4.80 in Florida, I'm looking at a probably $80 to $90 gas bill every time I fill up. So move overseas, build your side hustle, pay 1/10 the cost of what it would cost to live in the U.S., and you can still have, I did a cost of living video, just a quick snippet. I did a cost of living video in Medellin. I have 2 maids, 9 dogs, a driver, a huge fancy mansion on the mountain, electric, taxes, absolutely everything. My monthly expenses are $2,700 a month. And most of you guys aren't going to have, big cars and 9 dogs and things like that. You could probably live very comfortably in Medellin for under $1,000 a month. So just keep that in mind. Don't spoil the secret. Don't ruin it for everybody. But, definitely look to do that. JP Morgan is suggesting $6.20 a gallon for gas in August. Although other analysts are saying that it's going to peak around $5.25 due to the fact that people are just simply going to stop driving or, buy a $50,000, $70,000 Tesla to stop paying for gas. Now, if we were paying $6.20, my $40 gas bill, that would turn into, for 812, about $130 to $140 every single time I went to fill up. So I would literally be spending $500 to $600 a month just on gas alone. Oil posted its seventh weekly gain. Both are up over $120, about 1.5 to 2% each. And because of the inflation news, we had a huge rise in gold and silver. You guys know that I'm a huge swing trader in silver. Love the miners. Gold went up 1.12% to 1873, while silver was quite volatile this week, went up 0.04% to 2201. Financial and banking news, the Reagan economist eviscerates the current administration, saying that we have a catastrophic economy. Total employment today is 800,000 lower than it was in 2020. So we've had 2 years of the miracle recovery. And even now we have 800,000 less jobs than what we had before the pandemic in 2020. Kind of puts into perspective the literal chaos that we're in right now. According to the U.S. Mortgage Bankers Association, the applications for mortgages fell 6.5% from 1 week earlier in the week ending June 3rd. So as I mentioned to you guys, the consumer sentiment is at a record low, meaning that people are less inclined to go out and spend money, which is 70% of the economy. And now we have 17 to 18%, which is the housing market, with people applying less for mortgages. So because of the astronomical rising in prices, in addition to the increase in interest rates, we have a situation where about 90 or so percent of the economy is not bueno. So prepare yourself, because it's not going to be a soft landing. El Salvador, stubbornly low economic growth. In addition to that, they're very close to an economic default due to the fact that they have a 90% GDP to debt ratio. If you guys remember, any country which is gets to about 100%, that's literally the line where the trouble starts propping up. The United States, if I'm not mistaken, I think we're at about 130%. A country like Japan is over 200%, even though that Japan is a little bit different due to the fact that their debt is from internal savings, whereas the U.S. is mostly external debt. But I wanted to mention this due to the fact that this is a year after they made Bitcoin legal tender, and the situation that they're in now, where they're pretty negative in their Bitcoin positions, is not putting the country in a better situation. On Wednesday, Bank of India and Australia decided to raise their key interest rates. The Bank of England is most likely going to raise interest rates again. It's the first time, or the fastest, I should say, increase in hikes for the Bank of England in 25 years. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe the UK still has the 8th or 9th largest economy in the world. And for most of you guys that don't know, we've been in a bubble literally since 1999. We had the tech bubble that popped. There was a hedge fund called the Long-Term Capital Management, which literally was like an octopus in the economy. Instead of letting that fail, what they did is they bailed it out. all kinds of banks in the United States and Europe. Then we had the 2008 and 2009 crisis, which was a financial crisis. So we had a hedge fund collapse. They didn't allow it to get fixed, right? They didn't let the trash out of the system, let's say. Then that plagued, or that kind of spread through the financial system. Then we had the 2008 and 2009 crisis. Then they doubled down on saving the economy instead of allowing the economy to collapse like they did, for example, in Iceland. They let the banks fail. We should have taken all the executives to jail as well. But now that we're starting to increase interest rates, the bubble that began in 1999 is going to unravel very quickly because we've gotten used to. There's some people, for example, younger people that have never lived through an economic recession, right? We had the COVID recession, which is when 2020, when the next recession should have hit, and then they literally doubled down on the amount of money that they injected into the economy. 40% of the dollars that are in circulation now were not in circulation before COVID. So they literally injected money into the system, and that's why we're having this inflation problem. And now the current administration just continues to print even more money instead of scaling back. And when they start to remove the money out of the system, and we're not in this bubble economy anymore, which is starting to happen with the rise in interest rates, that's why we're seeing the things that we're seeing right now. So let me know if that made sense. If not, I'll make another video going into it a little bit more in depth. The ECB is also reporting raised inflation for the entire Eurozone. They're at 6.8%, even though not as high as the US, but still very high nonetheless. In political news, Boris Johnson survived a confidence no vote by 211 to 148 votes. That has to do with him going out and partying when there were lockdowns in the UK, even though government doesn't follow its own rules. And a man armed with a knife, pistol, and other weapons was arrested at the home at Justice Brett Kavanaugh's house. Said that he wanted to kill him due to the upcoming decision on Roe versus Wade. And unfortunately, as I told you guys before, the next 10 years, we're going to have a lot of social problems, a lot of economic problems. In addition to that, a lot of environmental problems, earthquakes and sinkholes and volcanoes going off. So the preppers were right. Hope you prepared yourself. Conspiracy Marcello is back. Corporate news, Target went down 2.44% after they reported that they had an increase of 43% in their inventory. There's a situation that's happening now since people aren't going out and buying things with, big retailers like Target, Walmart, even Amazon. Their inventories, they started buying a bunch of stuff right after the COVID pandemic due to the fact that they thought that consumers are going to go out and start buying stuff. But now because of the inflation and because people can't afford it anymore, they're not going out and buying the stuff that these retailers thought that they were going to go out and buy. So a lot of them now are, Target in particular, is offering deeper discounts and cutting back stock on discretionary items to be able to go ahead and get their inventory back down and sell the inventory that they have, because a lot of the retailers now aren't doing well anymore. Tesla filed an annual proxy with the SEC. They decided to do a 3-for-1 stock split. Board member Larry Ellison also is not going to continue on the board. Their stock is down over 34% this year so far. Danish shipping giant Maersk, they are the biggest container shipping lane and vessel operator in the world. So everything moves via boat. You order something from Europe or from China, most of the items go through boat. So the things that this company says, which is Maersk, which is the biggest vessel operator in the world, is important because it's a gauge, it's a leading indicator of what the economy is doing. They're saying that their concerns that the container rates are likely to drop is a sign of the easing supply chain restrictions. In addition to that, people aren't ordering as much stuff, so it's another indicator that we might be walking to an economic contraction or a recession. Not much in trade news this week. In technology, the EU countries and lawmakers agreed to a single charging port for mobile phones, tablets, and cameras, so they all have to be a USB Type-C. Apple, unfortunately, wants to rape you by charging you for a cable that nobody else can use, so now they're going to have to fall in line. They climb 1.8%, even though they're going to lose out the money on selling you a charger that you don't need anymore. And in investment news and international events, Erdogan, the president of Turkey, is now threatening Greece that they shouldn't militarize the Aegean Sea near the Turkish coast. This is due to the fact that they have a lot of oil and natural resources, and you guys can see wars and rumors of wars. We have conflicts kind of propping up all over the place. Even North Korea started to arm up again. as I mentioned, you guys, conspiracy Marcello is saying that the preppers were right. Ukrainian officials are pleading for more aid from the West on Friday. I don't know if you guys remember, the mainstream media was talking about how Ukraine was winning the war and Russia was losing. Now they unfortunately had to admit that they're not doing too well. Unfortunately, there are 100 to 200 soldiers dying a day. And that's why they pleaded with the West to be able to get faster arms shipments to be able to, quote unquote, continue with the war. And the Biden administration announced on Friday that you can now travel to the United States without a COVID test. Still need to be vaccinated, but for all of you guys that want to come and visit the United States, you don't have to take a test anymore. And in unusual facts this week, science is reporting that Chile has the oldest tree in the world at over 5,400 years old, more than 13 foot in diameter of the trunk. That's almost 4 meters. Thought that was pretty interesting. That's the news for this week, guys. Hopefully you're stocking up because the preppers soon are going to be even more right. We'll see you next week. Take care of yourself. Don't forget to leave your like. Have a good one.